Welcome to Showdown. I'm Mark Kaysen, and it is Thursday. Okay, that's the 12th of September. And Donald had very good news today for everybody. We don't have to listen to that nonsense anymore because he now refuses to do any debates. I guess his feelings were hurt. I understand. It's a rough life. Yeah, he didn't want to have to do this again. Well, okay. Once was enough, honestly. The point was made, and you're sunk. So this will be fine. And actually, I've got something to play for you, and I'm going to do it, and I'm just going to give a little instruction here to Joe on the air, which is no problem at all. So, Joe, if you go to Morning Joe, on the in the library, you're going to hit 106, and there's some great stuff going on there that we're going to look at. So that oh yeah, you didn't do it that fast. Yeah. Okay, no problem. Anyway, so while Joe is pulling all that up, I really have to say I appreciate it. I ran in here so late today that this is about the best way.
Did you say 106?
106.
Like 1 hour and 6 minutes?
That is correct.
Okay.
1 hour and 6 minutes in. And that should get it to us. And what it is Steve Ratner, and he's got all his charts up, and it might even be a half a minute before that, but that's at 106. It will definitely be. Oh yeah, you got it right there. So you want to move a little bit to before that, I think. Yeah. Just a little bit in further. Yeah, just right up before he actually gets to the charts. He's got some great stuff there. Just all the stuff that we've talked about here so long. I mean, it's there you go. Right there. You can start it there.
They made crime in this country is through the roof, and we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime.
All right, Steve, so what's the reality there?
So the reality there, and we've talked about this before, and for some reason Donald Trump can't process the actual numbers. He prefers to deal in his alternate reality. But the reality is, in fact, that violent crime has dropped 26% under the Biden-Harris administration. It has gone from 398 per 100,000 people to 294 per 100,000 people. This is an annualized figure, so it's a very significant drop this year in particular. And under the Trump administration, violent crime was effectively flat, went up a little bit. That was COVID, in fairness, but basically no progress, huge progress under Biden in violent crime. Now, one of the things that the former president, the other guy, would like us all to think is that all this violent crime, however much there is being committed by immigrants. And we've talked about this before also, and it doesn't seem to have penetrated either. But the fact is that when you look at who commits violent crimes, it is disproportionately native-born Americans, not immigrants. So this is the rate of crime produced by native-born Americans. This is by legal immigrants, and this is by undocumented immigrants. And if you look at property crime, if you look at drug violations, you're going to find the same thing. And it's not that crazy to think about. If you come here and you're an undocumented immigrant, you don't want to be sent back. So you are much more likely to be a law-abiding citizen. And documented immigrants are very happy to be here. They don't want to commit crimes. And so the high crime rates are really among native-born Americans, and they've been going down. And this is utterly contrary to what Donald Trump said.
So I want to just stop here for a second, and we just need to underline these two facts because, first of all, regarding the, quote, migrant crime, the reality is, I mean, this has been the case for years. And for years, when Donald Trump and other demagogues have been talking about illegal immigrants coming into America and then committing a vast array of crimes, it's just not true. The data never shows it. And by the way, I've always said my entire life, adult life, that the first thing somebody should do when they come to America shouldn't be breaking a crime. So yes, they cross the border illegally. That's a crime. They shouldn't do that. And I wish Trump would not have killed our border security bill that you know, we Republicans wanted to pass and Democrats wanted to pass. But this this bears repeating what you said, because this isn't a new fact. This is an ongoing fact. The second thing, Steve, is the big lie another big lie that crime is just rampant. You look at your numbers, and per 100,000, let's underline this, the crime rate thus far per 100,000 residents, lower violent crime rate than any year that Donald Trump was president, and in fact, lower per 100,000 people crime rate. Some are saying if the numbers hold out, it will be the lowest number since 1950. And so underline just the difference between perception and reality on this front.
Yeah, I don't have 1950 here, but you can see even from the beginning of Obama what's happened to the crime rate from here to here, and a material amount of it, again, just to repeat, has come under the Biden administration.
Yeah, and another obvious lie, and an obvious lie that people like Neil Cavuto and commentators on CNBC, a lot of business people that even support Donald Trump will tell you is a lie, is the claim that tariffs won't raise prices. Let's take a look at that lie.
Joe,
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have, and who's going to have higher prices, is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years.
What are the facts? All right. What are the facts? What are the facts? Steve.
Joe, it's amusing to me, as you know, an economics guy, that trade and tariffs have not been this much of an issue, I think, since the days of Grover Cleveland and Benjamin Harrison when they fought about tariffs. But every American now has heard a lot about tariffs. So let's talk about the reality of tariffs. Trump says China's going to pay the tariffs, or whatever country the goods are coming from. That is utterly false. First of all, tariffs are paid by the companies that bring the goods into the country, not by some other foreign country. What do those companies do when they're paying tariffs? They raise their prices. So here's a real-life example of what can happen. These are laundry machine prices. Trump imposed tariffs on them back in 2018. Prices immediately, or over a period of time, went up $200. That was faster than the increase in the rate of inflation. Biden allowed those tariffs to expire. Prices went down $75, and all in all, the price of laundry machines is now increased by less than the overall inflation rate. So you can see a live example. If you put tariffs on, prices go up. You take them off, prices go down. They're national sales tax, just as Kamala Harris said. They're paid by the consumer. So let's see what the consumer is paying. There are various estimates around of what the Trump tariffs would cost. He's talking about 20% on everything, 60% on what comes in from China. There are estimates that it would cost somewhere between $2,600 and $4,000 a year per family, but that is not equally distributed. Taxes are regressive. People at the lower end pay a higher share of their income, just like they do in sales tax, in tariffs. And you can see the impact here. If you're at the bottom, the Trump tariffs would cost you 6.3% of your income, of your after-tax income. If you're at the top, it would only cost you 2.9% of your after-tax income. So we are, in effect, and it's not huge numbers, we are making the wealthier wealthier and the poor poorer when we put taxes on, as well as burdening the whole society with anywhere up to $4,000 of additional cost per family.
So, Steve, we held up the front page of the Wall Street Journal earlier. Inflation slows to 3-year low. When you talk about tariffs, how does the Wall Street Journal editorial board, how does some of the guys on Wall Street that you know so well?
Okay, we can pull it off
Donald
now,
Trump?
Joe. Okay, so there's a lot there, a whole lot. But listen, it's the same thing that we have talked about here over and over, month after month. because it's so simple. First, Donald's a liar. Everything he says is a lie. He never tells the truth. Or presumably he doesn't tell the truth except for when he says his name. Now, I don't know. Maybe there's something to that. But other than his name, everything that he says is a lie. And you just heard a whole bunch of them, and you got to see the statistics. Because it's absolutely absurd that this man keeps going on, saying things that are ridiculous. And, you know, during the debate, when he was lying, I kept thinking that Kamala would say, your numbers are ridiculous, Donald. You're wrong. But a lot of the people involved in campaign strategy today were talking about the fact that it never pays to argue with these lies, and especially with Donald, but that it really never pays to argue with the lies from anybody. Make your points and let the liars lie. Because honestly, the people who believe in Donald will believe his lies. And the people who aren't tied to Donald are going to be open to other information on everything. So you're best to just not argue over his lies. And Kamala didn't do it. And it was probably, I guess, even though I don't like it, but I guess it's a smart thing. Because the other possibility is you come back and you say, Donald, here is why everything you're saying is a lie. However, there's this whole problem with immigration. And the fact is, even Democrats think that migrants are the ones who are committing crimes. I mean, I know because even today I was asking questions, and people who support Kamala are still saying that migrants commit the crimes. And we know they don't. And you just saw the numbers because it's not even close. It's so far from true. But people are so sure that it's those who come across the border who are committing the crimes. And like I say, Democrats believe it. Republicans certainly believe it. Donald's on there talking about the people from insane asylums and all the rest. There's just no doubt. People believe it. And the reason that this is really so important is because of a conversation that I had yesterday with another very, very good longtime friend of mine whose parents escaped Nazi Germany. And I was saying that, you know, years ago, I remember as teenagers and then all the way through our growing up period, always wondering, how could the Germans have been fooled by this lunatic? How could Germans believe Adolf Hitler? But finally, we've got the answer. It wasn't in the water in Germany. We used to joke, oh, it must have been in the water. But no, it wasn't in the water. It's us. We're no different than the Germans. 100% no different. Donald is out here talking just like Adolf Hitler. Exactly like Hitler. Haitians are eating dogs and cats. Your pets will be gone if you vote for Kamala Harris. All of this lunacy It's Hitler. And unfortunately, we're the German people. That's us. We're no different at all. I know my brother was talking to me this morning, and he was trying to make this big point when we were talking about it, that people are people. And I was sort of, making it difficult for him and saying, oh, no, people aren't people. But you know what? I guess they are. I guess we're no different than the Germans. And I can only tell you that if we follow this course and we put Donald Trump, which we won't, it won't happen. But if we did put Donald Trump into the presidency, it would end like Germany. You know that Donald has said, and that's the thing you've got to believe when these people say this. He has said that there will be such a bloody deportation process. People will be killed everywhere. Some American citizens will have to be deported as well. This is Hitler. This is Germany. And the millions of Americans who support Donald Trump support Adolf Hitler. Now, get this straight here. They don't mean to. This vast group of people do not think that they are supporting Adolf Hitler. I am not blaming the American people for Trump being a psychopath. Not at all. But it doesn't matter because the result is the same. This is exactly the answer to the question, which at least I was asking with friends 50 years ago. How did the German people succumb to this? How was it possible? Now, the Russians were a little different because the Russians were already under the control of Stalin. There was nothing they could do. I mean, unless they wanted to fight, and they weren't going to do that. So they went with Stalin. They were part of the whole communist revolution. And, Stalin did the same thing as Hitler, same thing. First of all, he killed not 6 million Jews. He killed over 20 million Russians. So, these people do it. This is what happens when you allow dictators to run your country. And Stalin did something very interesting, which is similar to Hitler, and it's what Donald's trying to do. And that is just lie about everything. For example, after the debate, Donald said that he got polls. Now, you know that these are fake polls. And the reason you know they're fake polls is because when he says that the people indicated that he won the debate, and then the number that he gave was 86-3. 86% said Donald won, and 3% said Kamala won. And again, Joe Scarborough this morning was very funny. And he said, thank you, Comrade Stalin, for getting us these important polls. Because this is exactly what Stalin did. Stalin would get in an election, you got to laugh, but he'd have an election and he'd win 90-10. And then he'd say, it's incredible, the great support that the Russian people were giving to Joe Stalin. And anytime he did any of these polls, 90-10, 95-5, it was always these gigantic numbers that he won by. And that's what what Trump did this morning. He had other numbers that went along with this 86-3. He had one that was 90%, another one that was like 79%. I guess he throws that in so it sounds like that he's really doing something. It's all fake. It's all a lie. Nobody believes that the American people by 90% thought Donald won that election. Nobody believes that. In fact, the actual polling said something like 60% saying that Kamala won, and 37% said that Donald won. And that's about where the numbers are. 60-37. That's pretty darn close to where we are as a country. It's about 40% of the people support Donald, and the rest support anything else, but not Donald. Now, I have to say that we will see in November what that real number is. Of course, that's the final poll. But really, you know that Donald lost that debate. And he sat there with his head down, and he was practically crying the whole time. And everything was, these crazy claims that he was making because it was desperation. Dogs and cats are being eaten. Your pets will be gone. That's what he said. Your pets will be gone if you elect Kamala Harris. Your pets will be gone. There were kids reportedly crying to their parents. I don't even know where they got the information, but, are our pets going to be gone? I mean, what kind of a thing? Look, forget even the kid part. Saying that your pets will be gone is insanity. I mean, we're not talking about policy debate. We're talking about insanity. And here's the other interesting thing, switching gears here a little bit now. You've got the Cheneys who jumped up and quickly endorsed Kamala. And of course, Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala, which I had it explained to me even further today that there are a lot of young people out here who haven't even ever been registered, but they love Taylor Swift, and Swift is out here registering people. Well, that's helpful. That's not somebody just following an endorsement. That's somebody out here putting real resources toward getting people registered so that they can vote. And there's no question that there is a giant move to register people on the part of Kamala, and on the part of Donald, it's just desperation. And as part of their desperation, Donald said today he is not going to do another debate. And when I say today, this was late today, just as I was coming in. Donald says no debates. It's over. And he said what he wants Kamala to do is to think about what she should have been doing for the last 3.5 years instead of bothering him. Well, let me say this. Kamala couldn't do anything for the last 3.5 years because, as we've discussed at length, vice presidents do almost nothing. They certainly don't have policy decision-making powers. Now, Kamala says she's in the room at the end with the president, and that she and the president have talked things out each time. Maybe so. I don't deny that that's a possibility, and that's a good thing. But at the same time, Joe Biden is the president. He makes the decisions until Kamala Harris is inaugurated as the next president of the United States. That's the end of that discussion. Joe Biden is the president. I know that Donald said, "Where's Joe Biden? Is he at the beach?" You know, all this craziness. Joe Biden is trying to get a deal in Israel. He's been working on that for months. Not easy, because Hamas doesn't want a deal. You know, the worse the things are for the people in Gaza, the better they are for Hamas. So if Hamas can get, 10 or 20,000 more people killed, then that works in their view. That works for them against the Israelis, because then they can say, "Hey, look what Israel's doing. Horrible, bad people, Now, Kamala, again, I'll say it because I said it yesterday, made it very clear in the debate. She's going to continue to provide whatever Israel needs from us to defend itself. At the same time, she supports a two-state resolution of this problem, which would give the Palestinians a tremendous degree of dignity and respect and the ability to build their society. And I understand Netanyahu doesn't want to do it, but he'll have to do it. The world's going to make him do it, because there's no way to end this problem in that area without building up the Palestinians. The good news for the Palestinians is that the United States will pour trillions of dollars into that area and will build them a society that will be incredible. And they deserve it. Not because of what's happened recently there, but because they've really been dismissed by everybody. The Arab countries have not wanted to do anything to help the Palestinians. They've pushed them aside. Israel certainly doesn't want to support the Palestinians, except one time we know Netanyahu gave money to Hamas, thinking that somehow that would prevent a two-state solution and that Netanyahu would get his way. And he thought that, as they said, because they did, the Israeli defense people did say this, that they had believed that Hamas was not capable of actually implementing this plan, which they actually, again, the Israeli Defense Forces had the plan. They knew what Hamas wanted to do on October 7th, but they thought it couldn't be done. Doesn't let those people off the hook at all, but they did think it. And then Netanyahu poured billions of dollars into Hamas through Qatar. I mean, this is all documented. Everybody knows this. This is factual. The question is what to do about it. And there's only one thing to do about it. End the war by rebuilding the Palestinian lives. And then, of course, secure the safety for Israel at the same time. That's all. It's really too simple. Hamas doesn't want it because it doesn't include them. Hamas will be dead if this happens. But while Hamas would be dead, Palestine would be alive. It would be alive, it would be growing, and it would be a true potential partner in the Middle East for Israel. next door neighbors. They could work together, not maybe immediately, but eventually, because you just have to give the Palestinians the opportunity to develop the dignity that they deserve. We did it for the Germans after they, for 12 years, heiled Hitler. We gave it to Japan after they attacked us on December 7th, 1941 in Pearl Harbor. So the truth is, we've done this before and it has worked. It has worked in the worst situations that anybody could imagine. And Hamas is certainly among the worst situations that anybody could imagine. So you give them the support, not Hamas, but the Palestinians. You give them the support that they need to rebuild their society, and you will end this mess in the Middle East. We already ended it with Egypt. We gave Egypt, starting 40 years ago, $1 billion per year. Sure, it was a bribe, and it worked. We gave them $1 billion every year, and Egypt said, we'll take this deal, because keep the billion coming, and we won't bother anybody. And they haven't bothered a soul. They just take care of themselves and collect the money. Now, there is probably a great deal of money being pushed around in bad directions there, stolen. There's corruption. But here's the thing. If there's corruption in Egyptian society, well, that's just not our business. Because what we're doing is providing the leadership in Egypt a great reason to never attack Israel ever again. And for 40 years, it's worked. So, it's a complicated situation in the world, as it always is. It's nothing new. But 80 years ago, the United States figured out how to stop doing the same thing over and over again and ending up with insanity. We stopped it. Because you know what we did at the end of World War I. We crushed the Germans, and they came roaring back in 20 years to try to punish everybody. Well, time to do the right thing with the Palestinians. And Joe Biden is leading the way toward attempting to do this. Now, if it goes on into the Kamala Harris administration, okay, it does. But here's the thing. Imagine if it were Donald. Oh, you don't want to imagine. You don't even want to think about it. Because what that guy would do if he had the opportunity to end NATO, to send Russian troops all across Europe, you just don't need that. I mean, we already tried that one before with Hitler. I mean, we stopped him, but it wasn't easy. And it took a long time, and a lot of people paid the price. Well, this time, we would pay the price. Imagine the people that Donald would slaughter if he had the opportunity. I mean, he's already said he would do it. He's already said mass deportations like nobody has ever seen before. And he said, and believe me, they'll be bloody. And I believe him. I'm sure it would be bloody. This man is dangerous. Well, you can see that one of the results of this is that we've got people all over the world, and especially in the United States, rooting for Kamala Harris. Europe is completely rooting for Kamala Harris, because without Kamala Harris, Europe is done. Because there's no question. With Donald in control, Putin could walk through Europe, be a cakewalk, nothing to it. That would be the end without American support against the Russians. Hard to believe, but Donald has promised this. He says, yes, that he did tell people that he would allow Russia to do whatever the hell they want. He admits that. Well, he has to admit it. We can hear it, but he doesn't have to admit it because we hear all kinds of things and he denies it, but not this one. Oh, he admits this. Just, last week he said he said it and he meant it. Imagine how dangerous the world would be if Donald Trump could run wild. So now here, look at this one. I'm ready to switch anyway. I love it. I've got it on my list. Hi, Mark. Did you hear that Fulton County Judge Scott McAfee dismissed 2 counts against Donald Trump in Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis's election case? That is true. And as a result, there are only 8 remaining counts. But you got to read it and know what those 8 remaining counts are. Donald will go to jail for the rest of his life with the 8 remaining counts. All that's being taken out of these cases, all the things that the Supreme Court said that you couldn't prosecute. Now, the fact is, the Supreme Court is so wrong, dangerously wrong. I mean, this is all part of the Nazi Hitler deal. But you've got people like Scott McAfee, like Judge Chutkan, like Judge Merchan, people who are doing everything they can to adhere to the rulings of the Supreme Court, and at the same time, to maintain the prosecutions against Donald Trump. And remember this, Donald's running around the country right now proclaiming how he won the documents case in South Florida. Now, we know he didn't win the documents case in South Florida. His hand-picked lady that he says probably could get to be a Supreme Court justice if he wins, wink, wink. We got this under control. She has now made her 3rd ruling in favor of Donald, this time dismissing the case, but making a very big mistake. She dismissed the case before the jury had been impaneled. Therefore, it's all back in the District Court 11 again, where they are going to come back and say, as they did in the 2 previous cases, that she's wrong. She is going to be hit hard on this by the 11th District, which is pretty interesting in itself because they are a conservative court. The conservative court has already hit her twice. Now they're going to come back for a 3rd time and hit her again. And at that point, they'll probably remove her from the case, reinstate it, and then Donald can take his whole story. It's not true. He did not win. He made a deal, an illegal deal, by the way, with a judge to get her to do things for him Huh. I mean, this is Hitler. They did this in Germany. He did things with the courts. Oh, he did it for sure. So don't be surprised when all of this comes roaring back under Kamala. But it won't be Kamala. It won't have been Joe Biden. It will have been grand juries, citizens of the United States who heard these cases and ruled that there's probable cause to go forward with indictments. That's the way we do it. And in the case in Manhattan, when they did it, Donald was convicted. That's why he's a convicted felon. Donald hasn't won a thing. 54 days left, and you'll see what Donald's going to win. Right now, I'm just going to go to dinner. I'm going to start with dinner at Wendy's, 18,000 Chesterfield Airport Road. And believe me, they've got the best food and a great environment, great atmosphere for eating, fabulous drinks, the iced tea, my favorite. And let's start off. They've got the wings. They've got the smoked meat. They've got hamburgers, cheeseburgers, and I love patty melts with onions all over. Now, after that, there's pizza, there's salad. I mean, all of this great food at Wendy's. I mean, it's a great menu. And then you end up eventually with my favorite of all, and that's those baby back ribs. With, this is me, with the onion rings. It's a phenomenal meal. It's just a great place to go for dinner, and it is Wendy's. Now, go down the road to Defiance, Missouri, and do it all again. Wendy's Roadhouse at 2999 South Highway 94, and it's all great food, the same great food that you get at Wendy's in Chesterfield Valley, and the same great owners, and the same great atmosphere. You can't go wrong at Wendy's. Now, there's jewelry, and I mean cases and cases and cases full of jewelry at 4506 Hampton, and that's Jewels on Hampton. My very good friend there, Al, and his son, AJ, run a tremendous business. They're very nice people. Everybody loves to go and meet them. They buy and sell jewelry and coins. And it's just a great business. Al and AJ, they run it, and they run it well. They'll take good care of you if you're going there to buy jewelry. And of course, they will fix your watch. They're good at that too. And they design jewelry. They're excellent. Jewels on Hampton. Now, if you're looking for men's clothing, of course it's the St. Louis Suit Company in Clayton, corner of Central and Forsyth. They've got shoes and shirts and jackets and overcoats. I know it's warmed up again, but we're heading to the end of all of this. That cold weather's coming. We know it always comes by Halloween, and we're getting there. But you can still buy great clothes of all kinds at the St. Louis Suit Company, not to mention the greatest $5 ties that you'll ever find on the planet. They are great. Now, if you're getting married, you also want to go to the St. Louis Suit Company because they'll take care of you with wedding attire. They're just the best. Known to be the best. So go see my friends, Jay and Nick, and their whole family. They're all there. Really, you go in there, it's all the family. They're making that place work as they have for 30 years. They don't play. That is the St. Louis Suit Company in Clayton. Check them out. Now, how about Alberto Gonzalez? That is a former attorney general under George Bush, Republican. Guess who he's supporting? Kamala Harris. I mean, it's sort of obvious what's happening here. You're not hearing every day about all these new people who are jumping out here to support Donald Trump. You're hearing people from all over, whether it's people in the entertainment business, people in the political arena, people in government administration, generals, and Republicans, hundreds of Republican leaders who are coming forward and saying, yes, I am for Kamala Harris. So, I mean, this is no joke. This is huge. I've said from the beginning of Kamala that the country was lit on fire with enthusiasm by her. And I'll tell you, on the way in here, I was listening to Kamala at one of her rallies where Donald explained that nobody shows up. Now, remember this. He went through this just at the debate. Nobody shows up, and anybody that does show up is bussed in. Now, I'm going to tell you, they don't have enough buses to bring in the people that Kamala had this afternoon. And these are people who should be at work. But no, they're out here seeing the next president of the United States, and these crowds are enormous. Now, I've never been one to care about the whole crowd thing, but I care about it in this respect, and that is that I certainly want all these people to come out motivated to support her and then to go and vote. I mean, let's get this done. We got 54 days. This is 54 days between us and Hitler. It's that simple. It's that simple. That's not meant to scare anybody. It's not even that's not the issue. The issue is this man is a psychopath. He's got serious problems. And before this is over, wait till you see what he does. He's not done. He has got his last hurrah, and he is going to come out here and do everything imaginable, crazy, dangerous, threatening poll workers. He's threatening everybody. It's his last shot. Because, by the way, it's not just winning the election. When he loses the election, he's on his way to jail. Because he's going to spend the rest of his life in courtrooms. And then, when he's convicted of whatever they convict him of, and believe me, they have enough crimes that he has committed that they will convict him. And he'll be on his way to prison. Rikers? Well, that's what Jim Comey now says. Set up a trailer at Rikers and bring in the Secret Service to guard him and let him spend the rest of his life there. Because that's where this is going. This is not retribution for anything. This is not Donald Trump. This is not a weaponized Department of Justice. This is American justice. It's called a grand jury. The grand jury hears the evidence for probable cause. If they believe it, they bring indictments. The prosecutor comes in, takes care of it in order to be supportive of the grand jury, and everything goes forward until the judges all decide if there are any of the counts that have to be removed for various reasons, like what just happened today in Georgia, because the Supreme Court has ruled and Georgia has to follow that ruling. This is how we run the country. This is our justice system. It's not perfect, but it's the best in the world. No, it's not perfect. We do put people in jail who have not committed crimes. But in this case, the guy committed crimes. He committed many crimes. The only question is, which ones can we get him on? And this will be parsed out over the next 6 months, 8 months, 12, whatever it is, because Donald won't have anything else to do once he gets out of here. Oh, well, he will have one thing to do. He can sit around and he can calculate how much money he would have had if that crazy company of his, which is not a company, was able to maintain its value. Today it slipped into the 15s, new lows again. It did close right at 16. You know, nothing goes straight down, pretty much straight down, but not exactly straight down. You know, it's been at 80. Then it dropped to 23. Dead cat bounce to 54. Back down to 23. Held there a little bit. Now, $8 below the previous low. Currently, $15 to $16 a share. And you watch. This thing is on its way down. They've got 8 days to go. In 8 days, if this thing's got any value, it'll be a miracle. Because whatever it's got at the end, whatever it's got on the 20th, when Donald says, I want to file this to sell the shares, and then that'll take X number of days. And by the time it's done, I say $1. Now, don't get me wrong. $1 is still money. That's $115 million. So that would be nice. $115 million, and he owes New York $500 million. So he'll only owe them another $400 million. That's good. And trust me, Donald gets paid as a former president of the United States, so he will have something to eat, and that's fine. I want him to have his food. Let's feed him. Let's house him. Let's take good care of him, and let's show anybody who ever wants to be president ever again and thinks that they can use this office to destroy the country. Let's let them see how that works out, because it doesn't work out well. And it certainly doesn't work out well when the military's against you because you're breaking the law. When the Justice Department is out to get you because you're breaking the law. When the state officials are out to get you because you're breaking the law. I mean, that's how our country works. These aren't people who are putting on Russian show trials. These aren't people who are somehow creating what they like to call it kangaroo courts. It's none of that. It's grand juries, our fellow citizens who are listening to the charges, and then they're bringing cases. They're bringing indictments. And Donald is facing one bunch of felony charges, all far more serious than the ones that he's already lost in Manhattan. This is very serious. This is exactly why Donald is prepared to do whatever he has to do to try to stop this election from going forward. And that's why he has said, in his words, that if he doesn't win, it will be a bloodbath. Now, understand that at this debate, when Kamala brought that one up, Donald said, "Oh, no, I was talking about economic numbers." The man said that he will bring a bloodbath to all of us if he doesn't win. And then there are people out here who are willing to somehow entertain these ridiculous claims that he really meant something else. Just like when Hitler said he would kill the Jews, he really meant that he would take away your shoes. But you see, nobody is that dumb. We know what he said. We know what Donald's plan is. We know what bloody deportations mean. We know what it means when Donald uses Hitler's language to talk about migrants and specifically talks about black people. Go listen on Google, on YouTube. He didn't just say migrants. He said migrants from Africa. And then he turns around and says, well, I do more for black people than anybody in the country, the country's history, including Abraham Lincoln. Now, he's playing a game. The only problem is the people of the United States aren't stupid. Women aren't stupid. Black people aren't stupid. Nobody's going for this. Donald is not going to be president of the United States. And that's another thing. Even the polls this afternoon are showing that at this very moment, Kamala is again going up in the polls following the debate. And then, of course, there are people who say, well, she went up in the polls at the time of switching from Joe Biden, but it was all crashing. No, it wasn't crashing. Maybe it leveled off for a couple of days with her lead in place, but now it's going beyond the original high numbers, and she is gaining further against Donald. And that's why Donald this afternoon said, no more debates. He's not going near that woman. He got beat up pretty badly. Everybody knows it, and Donald knows it. What other things Donald knows, I can't tell you. He's a very sick man. He's a very sick man who is out here talking about the worst inflation in the history of the United States. Do you understand what was going on in 1980? Do you know that the interest rates were 21%, the prime rate? Paul Volcker did all that to stop inflation. Our inflation is 2.5% as of yesterday. 2.5%. And Donald says these things, and his people jump up and down and say, yes, Donald, thank you. But it's not true because he is a liar. And as Kamala said, he is a disgrace. Now, I'm going to get out of here. I'll be back tomorrow with my Trump supporting friends. They'll be here tomorrow. And remember, this is brought to you by Wendy's and the St. Louis Suit Company and Jules on Hampton And I'm Mark Kaysen. This is Showdown. Good night.